Hey guys, Omar here, and today we're going to talk about the new Fujifilm X-M5. And this is a fun release because Fujifilm hasn't come out with a little camera, a tiny camera, in quite some time. So I'm sure some of you are very excited out there. If you actually want to see me using the camera and running around like a fool, you can head over to Adorama's channel and see me there making a fool of myself using the camera. And thank you, Adorama, for letting us play with it. I'll put up some links below, so you can check out the video and also purchase it from Adorama. Thank you, guys. Now, first impressions, as soon as I took it out of the box, the first thing that struck me was the size. I kind of was like, oh, this is an everyday carry. This is a nice little camera. And the first thing I did was slap the 27mm 2.8 lens to see how it would look as a little street camera. And I think this camera is interesting because it sort of falls into three categories. I can see like three groups of people like, leaning in on this camera. I think the first group that this camera may be piquing the interest of is the general content creator, people who are posting on their phone, maybe are editing on their phone, TikTok people, shorts people. So that's the first group. I think it's the people who want to up their production value and want like a little everyday carry camera. That's number one. Number two is just as a general travel, capture the family camera. Woo! The price point is great. It's maybe an introduction to Fujifilm for a lot of people. So these are your non-pros that want to capture the kids and movies and travel. And so I think this is a perfect camera for that. So if you're in those two groups, super win, super win. Did I say three groups? I think I meant four groups. Actually, just came up with that now. I think the third group that'll be really happy with this camera is videographers. And I know the videography side of me was crazy excited when I realized that this camera can shoot 6K open gate. That the camera can actually shoot the full sensor width and height. And I really loved the flexibility of shooting 6K and then being able to crop in either to a 16:9 or crop in around the frame. I found that really, really useful for video. And I couldn't believe that this little camera was shooting 6K or could shoot 6K. And that was like a win right away. It's my sister. I'm actually recording right now.
I'm on camera. I love cameras.
All right, sounds good. Bye. Okay, what were we saying? 6K open gate, ridiculous, wonderful. So those people will be happy. Now, I think the fourth group that may enjoy this camera are photographers looking for a small, light, especially if you put this little 27mm on there, it gets really tiny. A little street camera, a little camera that you can get snaps with and maybe video is like a back seat to you. I enjoyed shooting it for photography. And it doesn't have a viewfinder, so you kind of have to be okay with that. But when I was using it, I would shoot a little video, and then I actually was I would switch it to photo. And one thing I do is a lot of times I don't even use the shutter if I'm shooting street photography. I actually just tap the screen, it'll focus and shoot. So I was actually having a fun time shooting photography on this camera, but one thing to know, again, it doesn't have a viewfinder, so this is what I look like when I'm shooting the camera. I'm like, hey, that's a great picture. So if you're young and you're making your vertical videos and you can see the back screen, this is gonna be a lot more enjoyable experience, but I'm a lot very viewfinder dependent if my glasses aren't handy. So those are the four groups. And when I made my video for Adorama, I tried to put my mindset in the four groups. And you can imagine of those four, which was the hardest for old me. But I think the two tools that if I was a content creator that shot vertical video, I could see it being really convenient to set a timer and also set a timed video. Like, hey, I only want to make 30-second videos. Put the timer on there, it shows you a countdown, and you can then transfer the stuff to your phone. Or, at first when I saw the camera, I thought they were guidelines that were sort of guiding your vertical video framing, and then later you would have to crop a vertical video. But it turns out it makes phone-ready files. So it's actually recording vertical. Now, personally, I would crop later so that I have, versatility. But I think, again, if it's geared for people that want to go from camera right to phone, then it's convenient for it to show up vertical on your phone and just post it right away. Now, in the second group, the sort of hybrid traveler, I felt that walking around New York. And I would say that the thing that was the hardest was instead of there being a switch from photo to video, I don't know why I said it like that.
Photo.
I felt it was very capable in grabbing a little video and then shooting photos. One thing to note is there's no image stabilization in the camera, so you're pretty much tied, if you're shooting video, to lenses with optical stabilization. The 15 to 45 is a great starting point. It's absolutely fantastic. It did a great job. 15 was just unbelievably wide. What a good range, 15 to 45. The thing I found though, this second group, is switching from photo to video isn't as easy as other cameras, where there's just a switch that goes from movie to photo. And it's a long travel to go all the way from video to your photo. So I found that I saved one of the custom settings, which was a little closer. But to go from video all the way to manual or to aperture priority was a couple of clicks. Not a deal breaker by any means. Now, if you are part of this group, this travel group, shooting family, kind of general camera group, the inboard microphones, Fujifilm has made them direction-wise. You can actually have one that is, I don't know what it's called. It's like atmosphere priority.
Hi, we're in South Street Seaport here. Hi. Now we're in South Street Seaport, downtown Manhattan.
I felt if you were very close to the microphone, vlogging, again with a wide lens, that the microphone sounded fantastic. You don't need to put a microphone on top, which is also a pain.
Okay, this is the Fujifilm X-M5 with optical stabilization from the lens and digital stabilization turned on.
If I was in a very noisy environment, it picks it all up.
Oh, it's such a beautiful morning, nice and crisp. Just gonna try to find some light, take some photos.
Which it's totally fine if you're shooting videos of your family or the city that you're in, traveling, you don't need to put a microphone on. Again, this is like fast, convenient, take it out of your pocket, shoot some video camera.
Trying to use the lines and the light. It's just very fun. Now, microphone direction gets a little confusing when you flip the screen. Hope to share some of my process with you guys. So instead of a microphone icon, I actually wish it was a tiny camera, which would tell us which direction the microphone, if it's in front of the camera or behind the camera. I think that would have been a little bit more helpful.
But if you're going to be a little bit more professional, I definitely found that adding a microphone to it just made a huge difference.
So the mic jack is placed in a convenient location just to keep the cable away from the screen. All right, so now I'm hand-holding the Fujifilm X-M5. Now, if you're not camera savvy or tech savvy, there's a couple of buttons you can push to help.
Stabilization was a little shaky because it's just optical stabilization from the lens if you're walking. I'm gonna come out with a separate video comparing the X-M5 stabilization with another couple of cameras, so make sure you know what to do. Super fun option for travel. I definitely would carry 3 batteries with me if you're shooting, photo and video for the entire day. I think it's like the usual for these batteries is just to make sure you have backups. Now, videographers, you can absolutely, with your 6K 10-bit 422, has great color. It shoots in F-Log, F-Log 2. Now, what's neat about the camera too, if you're like in love with one of the film simulations, you can shoot all your photos and videos to match, which is something I enjoy. Especially if you're not a videographer and you're not gonna shoot F-Log and color grade later. It's so nice if you love Reala Ace, you can shoot your photos and then have a little B-roll in Reala Ace. Now we should probably talk about the film sim dial. This was introduced in the Fujifilm X-T50, and the film simulation dial, some people called it gimmicky, some people were upset that it wasn't, it could have easily been an ISO dial, and I actually started using it to my advantage when I was making the Adorama video, because the thing it's best for is if you're experimenting with the different looks. So instead of diving into the menu and switching each one, you can actually keep your face up to the camera and see the changes change. That's the biggest thing. That's its biggest advantage, is that if I see some red or yellow in a scene, I could be like, pop, 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 pop. Oh, that red is my favorite. Pop, that's the picture I want. So if you're a JPEG shooter or if you're shooting video and you want to quickly pick a look, the dial, there's nothing better than the dial. Now for the photographer only, the super benefit of this camera is it's pocketable. It's small, especially with the 27mm 2.8. This makes it a great street combo. If you love Fujifilm and you got your Fujifilm recipes, now they're in your pocket. Now the one hang up though is that Fujifilm has their smallest pancake is this 27, so you're stuck to that focal length. It would be nice if there were more of these very small pancake lenses. All right, any negatives? The usual negatives with small camera, the tripod plate. If you put a tripod plate on the bottom, it sort of blocks the battery door and your card door. So many times, there were so many times where I was like, oh, there's no card in this camera. Second, you're gonna have to invest in batteries, and also it doesn't come with a charger, so you're gonna have to either get a third-party charger or official Fujifilm charger, but you can charge it via USB. By the way, this thing has a 3.5mm headphone jack. I couldn't believe that. That's fantastic for such a small camera. The mic jack placement on the top is really great so that the screen doesn't get in the way when you're vlogging. You just have to, I found that I had to use two hands to sort of plug in, like most other cameras, you open up the door and then plug in. It took a little getting used to plugging in the microphone. And there was one time where I didn't push the microphone all the way because the little rubber door kind of blocked my microphone last minute. And so I had to redo the whole thing. And I would say the last thing is maybe build quality. It depends if you're like coming from an X Pro 2 Graphite edition. Once I took it out of the box, I felt it, and it's, let's just say it's at a price point where the build quality makes sense, but don't be too disappointed if it's like your first camera and maybe you think it feels cheap. It's at a good price point and it's to be expected. We should talk autofocus, because that's a big Fujifilm hot topic lately, and the camera performed really well. I did a couple of tests in the office here where I walked up to the camera using the 15 to 45mm, and it totally worked fine. Let's do a quick little eye tracking autofocus test. This is the Fujifilm X-M5, and I am just gonna walk forward and walk back. And if it works, whatever you do, Fujifilm, do not update the firmware. Okay, grabbed my eye pretty fast there, so that looks good. I don't see any wavering or anything. This is the 15 to 45mm lens, and I have a white balance of 5300 or so, standard picture profile. So let's just give it a quick 1, 2, 1, 2. Background off, let's see if that works. No product. There's a product in front of me. Let's see if maybe it's just too close. That seems to work a little better. Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to do any extensive burst tests or anything, but this camera shoots electronic shutter like 20 frames a second, or crazy. So I'd be interested to test that in the future. So for me overall, autofocus there were no autofocus red flags right out of the box. All right, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about this camera below? Thank you, Adorama, and I'll see you guys next time.